Hollywood's golden age was filled with legendary drinkers. Their wild habits became as famous as their films. Let's meet the stars whose drinking defined an era. First up, the gin-soaked comedian. First up, W.C. Fields, the man whose drunken on-screen persona was barely an act. Fields was rarely seen without a drink, famously quipping, "I never drink water, fish in it." He carried a cocktail shaker of martinis everywhere, calling it pineapple juice. Reports say he drank up to 2 quarts of gin a day, over 2.5 bottles. His day started with gin, not coffee, and his dressing room was a private bar. Studios enabled his habit, knowing a sober Fields wasn't the Fields audiences loved. He even had contracts guaranteeing access to alcohol during filming. Fields joked, "I cook with wine, sometimes I even add it to the food." His life was so saturated with alcohol, it became his essence, on and off screen. Despite the toll, his comedic genius endured, fueled by a river of gin. Fields' story is a cautionary tale of talent, excess, and the blurred line between performance and reality. The legend of W.C. Fields is inseparable from his legendary thirst. Richard Burton, Shakespearean actor, lover, and legendary drinker. At his peak, he reportedly drank up to 4 bottles of vodka a day, starting with a Livener each morning. His tolerance was superhuman, but his drinking led to erratic behavior and strained relationships. Burton once said, "I'm a professional drinker, but I'm a professional actor first." Sadly, the bottle eventually consumed the man. His immense talent couldn't save him from the addiction that contributed to his early death at 58. Elizabeth Taylor, Burton's partner in passion and drinking, matched him glass for glass. She could easily finish a bottle of vodka and a bottle of wine daily, starting with a Bloody Mary and ending with champagne. Despite her heavy drinking, Taylor remained a consummate professional, until the toll became too great. Her battle with alcohol was as fierce as her fame, and she later sought treatment. Taylor's resilience was legendary, but her struggle with addiction was lifelong. Errol Flynn, Hollywood's original bad boy, lived for adventure, romance, and whiskey. He drank at least a bottle of whiskey a day, plus endless cocktails and champagne, often hosting wild parties on his yacht. Flynn saw drinking as essential to his lifestyle, not a problem. But by his late 30s, the excess caught up. He looked years older, his health failing. Flynn died at 50, his body worn out by a life of relentless indulgence. His story is a classic cautionary tale, the hero undone by his own legend. Flynn burned bright and burned out. Peter O'Toole embodied the hard-drinking, brilliant artist. He claimed giving up drinking was the longest afternoon of my life, and his escapades with Richard Harris and Richard Burton are legendary. O'Toole could down several bottles of wine and spirits daily, once waking up in another country after a night out. Diagnosed with pancreatitis in the 1970s, he was told to quit or die. He switched to beer and survived decades longer. O'Toole's wildness fueled his creativity but nearly cost him everything. Against the odds, he stepped back from the abyss and kept acting. Oliver Reed was an endurance athlete, his sport drinking. He was famous for marathon sessions, once reportedly drinking over 100 pints of beer in 24 hours. On a regular day, 20 pints was nothing, often chased with spirits. Reed's drinking was a public spectacle, sometimes overshadowing his acting. He died in Malta after a legendary binge, 3 bottles of rum, 8 beers, and countless whiskeys. Reed lived and died by the bottle. His legend is as much about excess as talent. John Belushi, SNL's original wild man, blurred the line between comedy and chaos. His drinking was constant, several bottles a day, whatever was available. On the set of Animal House, his off-screen binges matched his on-screen antics. Friends tried to intervene, but his addictions were too powerful. Belushi died at 33 from a drug overdose, a brilliant talent lost to relentless excess. His story is a stark warning about the cost of fame and addiction. Judy Garland's life was a battle against addiction, started by the studio system's pills and fueled by alcohol. Drinking became her desperate self-medication, leading to erratic performances and public meltdowns. Despite rehab attempts, the pressures and her past were too much. Garland died at 47, her talent forever shadowed by addiction. Her story is one of Hollywood's greatest tragedies. Dean Martin, the king of cool, built his image on being a lovable lush, but much of it was an act. His on-stage glass often held apple juice, not whiskey. Martin realized the drunk persona was a crowd pleaser and leaned into it. Offstage, he enjoyed a drink, but was no match for the true heavyweights. Martin was a savvy businessman, turning a boozy image into gold. The real Dean Martin was more showman than sot. Sometimes the legend is smarter than the reality. Ava Gardner's love of martinis was legendary. She could outdrink many of her male peers. Drinking was woven into her daily life, from poolside cocktails to late-night sessions. Her tumultuous marriage to Sinatra was fueled by passion and alcohol. Gardner wasn't a binge drinker but a steady, daily consumer. Her humor and attitude made her drinking seem like just another part of her legend. For Gardner, a cocktail was simply part of living. Humphrey Bogart, the ultimate tough guy, was rarely sober on set. A founding member of the original Rat Pack, he loved his Scotch and drank steadily from morning to night. On The African Queen, he and John Huston avoided illness by sticking to canned food and copious Scotch. Bogart's drinking fueled his persona, cynical, cool, and always with a glass in hand. He wasn't a sloppy drunk, just perpetually buzzed. The habit eventually caught up, contributing to his early death from cancer. Bogart's legend is forever linked to a glass of Scotch. Tallulah Bankhead was a force of nature. Her parties and drinking were legendary. She could drink 1.5 bottles of bourbon a day, plus champagne. Her lifestyle was unapologetically wild, her wit as sharp as her cocktails. Bankhead's substance abuse often derailed her career, but her magnetic personality kept people coming back. She famously said, "My father warned me about men and booze but never about women and cocaine." Bankhead burned brightly, leaving behind a trail of scandal and stories. She was excess personified. Montgomery Clift, a pioneer of method acting, was haunted by addiction and pain. After a devastating car accident, he mixed painkillers with massive amounts of alcohol to cope. His drinking became a desperate attempt to numb his agony, leading to erratic performances and a ruined career. Friends tried to help, but Clift was caught in a downward spiral. He died at 45, his brilliance undone by addiction. Clift's story is one of Hollywood's most heartbreaking. Spencer Tracy's battle with alcoholism was private, agonizing, and lifelong. Unlike flamboyant drinkers, Tracy binged in secret, disappearing for weeks at a time. His partner Katharine Hepburn often nursed him through these episodes. Studios covered up his problem, enabling his disease. Despite it all, Tracy built a legendary career while fighting a demon that nearly consumed him. His struggle was quiet, but no less destructive. Bette Davis, with her fierce persona, approached drinking with the same intensity as her acting. She loved whiskey, especially Scotch, and drank openly, even on set. A bottle was her constant companion, fueling her fiery spirit. Davis's drinking, combined with smoking, led to health problems later in life. But she remained defiant, seeing her habits as part of her strength. For Bette Davis, a drink was just another part of being legendary. Robert Mitchum's cool, detached persona was fueled by bourbon and a bit of marijuana. He was a high-functioning alcoholic, rarely missing a line despite steady drinking. Mitchum's bad boy image only grew after a marijuana arrest. He drank on his own terms, never apologizing. Outliving many contemporaries, Mitchum's cast-iron constitution became part of his legend. He truly lived by his own rules, with a glass in hand. Mickey Rooney, once the world's biggest star, struggled with addiction as his fame faded. He went on epic benders, drinking to celebrate and to numb pain. These binges damaged his relationships and career, but he eventually spoke openly about his struggles. Rooney's resilience kept him going, but his journey was marked by intense excess. His story is a classic tale of child star pressures and adult battles. Lee Marvin, Hollywood's tough guy, started his days with a beer or cocktail, never coffee. Drinking was a daily ritual, a habit from his Marine days. Marvin's tolerance was legendary. He could drink most under the table and still perform. His drinking fueled a gruff, sometimes volatile personality, exposed in a famous palimony lawsuit. Marvin never hid his habits. They were part of his persona. He lived and drank hard. Frank Sinatra, the chairman of the board, made Jack Daniels iconic. His parties were legendary and he was rarely without his signature drink. 2 fingers of whiskey, 4 ice cubes, splash of water. Sinatra's drinking was more controlled than some Rat Pack peers, but he could certainly put it away. Alcohol amplified his famous temper, fueling legendary fights with Ava Gardner. For Sinatra, drinking was tied to everything: friendship, celebration, romance, and anger. He was even buried with a bottle of Jack Daniels. Sinatra's world was always accompanied by the clink of ice in a glass. Dudley Moore, beloved for playing charming drunks, battled real-life alcoholism. He drank to cope with insecurity and fame, consuming large amounts of vodka on set. His drinking affected his work and relationships, and his later illness was mistaken for drunkenness. Moore's story is a tragic case of life imitating art. The laughter he brought masked a deep private pain. His end was poignant, a funny man hiding heartbreak. There you have it. 20 Hollywood legends, their talent matched only by their legendary drinking. Their stories are captivating, cautionary, and deeply human. Behind the glamour was immense pressure and little support, with studios often enabling destructive habits. These stars gave us unforgettable moments, all while fighting private battles. Which story surprised you most? Let us know in the comments.